In the beginning, there was darkness, and then, bang, giving birth to an endless expanding existence of time, space, and matter. Now see further than we've ever imagined, beyond the limits of our existence, in a place we call the universe. Our infinite universe is brimming with strange, violent, and potentially life-transporting phenomena. Imagine cosmic portals where objects could disappear, be ejected, or escape to some other place in space or time.
They are tickets to oblivion, for the most part. Either you get shredded in a black hole, you get transported to another part of the universe in a wormhole, or you get obliterated by the gusher of the white hole.
Blast off to the warp side of the universe as scientists search for black holes, white holes, and wormholes. Are they frivolous fantasies or a science fact? The universe is a cosmic cornucopia of endless possibilities. Imagine a shuttle service to anywhere in the cosmos. It's not aboard a futuristic spaceship. It's a galactic ride through a wormhole, a theoretical tunnel providing shortcuts through space and time.
Wormholes are a little bit like a subway system that you might use in the city, where you're going into a hole, you go through a tunnel, then you come out at the other end through another hole, and then you travel through the city. Same thing would be possible in a wormhole to travel between different points in the universe.
Physicist Clifford Johnson has contemplated the possibility of wormholes.
The difference between a wormhole and a subway system is that you're using the wormhole to travel a greater distance than you would because we're limited by the speed of light. We can't get to the Andromeda Galaxy in less than something like 600,000 years, even moving at the speed of light. I keep wondering if the really next big discovery in astronomy could be a wormhole. Not just because they're fun for people like me, but because they could take us to some place that we can't plausibly ever get any other way.
Gregory Benford has pondered the science and fiction of outer space. As both a physicist and author of over 30 sci-fi novels, Benford has witnessed fantastical theories become a reality.
A lot of us would like to know if wormholes really exist or whether they're just another mathematical construct thought up by Einstein, the genius.
Albert Einstein's general relativity laws allow for the existence of wormholes. In 1930, Einstein and his colleague Nathan Rosen calculated the mathematics of one of these intergalactic pipelines. It became known as the Einstein-Rosen Bridge.
The wormhole is a solution of Einstein's equations for general relativity, telling us how gravity works. They're hypothetical, and what they do is they connect different parts of space and time.
The Einstein-Rosen mathematical wormhole arose from studying black holes. A black hole is a region in space of extremely strong gravity. The gravity is so strong that there is no way for objects that get too near to break away from its gravitational pull. Nothing can escape a close encounter with a black hole, not even light.
This inverted fountain serves as a visual analogy to what's going on around the black hole. At the bottom is the area inside the event horizon. And the water falling into it is analogous to gas that might fall into a black hole. Imagine yourself being a fish swimming around this region. Once you get down inside the central portion, you're past the point of no return.
But Einstein never intended his wormhole as a tool for space travel. moment of time. It opens up briefly, then pinches off. Anything that tries to pass through it will get crushed when it squeezes apart.
The typical wormhole that you write down in your equations and study is unstable. It'll vanish in an incredibly short time. So what you need is some means of holding it open.
After Einstein's wormhole was determined unstable in the 1960s, little research was done on the concept. Then, the sci-fi film Contact was released in the late 1990s. Based on the book by renowned astronomer Carl Sagan, it proposed that a wormhole could be used for space travel.
The book Contact and then subsequently the movie was a nice place in fiction that was accessible to everyone, where you could see the idea of a wormhole. So it was a nice way of getting people interested in that idea all over again. This was kind of a very far-fetched idea that wasn't even considered very seriously by many physicists until Carl Sagan decided to write this book and try to make it as realistic as possible. And since that time, theoretical physicists studying Einstein's general theory of relativity have considered travel through wormholes.
Scientists began to investigate whether there might be a type of wormhole different from Einstein's that is traversable. But traversable wormholes needed something to prevent them from pinching off.
You want to stabilize the wormhole. You don't want the wormhole to collapse. Keep the wormhole open. That requires something new called negative matter or exotic matter. We've never seen negative matter before. It would have anti-gravitational properties. But one day, if we ever find negative matter, perhaps that's the key to stabilize the wormhole.
The idea of a traversable wormhole captivated science fiction enthusiasts. It also reinvigorated the serious study of wormholes within the science community.
This trend traversable wormhole created quite a sensation, because perhaps it is physically possible to one day build a subway system to another galaxy.
The term wormhole came from an analogy with an apple. You want to get from one part of the apple to another part. If you're a worm, you can eat your way down into the body of the apple and make a little tunnel and come out the other way, and it's shorter. But unlike a worm moving here on this apple, for a wormhole in our universe, we might not know what dangers lie at the other end of the wormhole.
The other end of a wormhole could be connected to a very dangerous part of the universe, with all sorts of exotic phenomena. It might even be in the core of a star.
If we ever find a wormhole, and if it's close enough for us to reach, almost certainly we'll first send automated probes through and direct them to come back. Maybe even put them on a cable in case something nasty happens to them and they can't return.
Physicists do not know of any way that a wormhole might arise naturally in our universe. But can they be made artificially?
One possibility that physicists have speculated about that might allow you to construct wormholes would be to blow them up from what's considered to be the fabric of space-time that might actually contain tiny wormholes seething in and out of existence due to the laws of quantum mechanics.
Scientists proposed that perhaps traversable wormholes could be sculpted out of quantum foam, a subatomic bubble-like structure that might exist everywhere in the universe, on length scales a billion trillion times smaller than the nucleus of an atom.
That's how you do it in principle. It's completely infeasible using any technology that we know of, but it's at least something you might consider.
If one could be engineered or located in space, scientists contemplated other possibilities for a wormhole. Could it transport galactic vacationers to different points in time? As well as different places in space?
To actually create a time machine or a wormhole machine that would take us to a distant galaxy, you would have to have the physics of an advanced civilization. A civilization perhaps millions of years beyond ours.
Time machines have mystified movie audiences for over 50 years.
I am talking about traveling through time in a machine constructed for that very purpose.
But could a wormhole be used for such travel?
Wormhole may lead to things like being able to go to another galaxy by walking 5 feet through a wormhole, or even going to another time.
But wormholes as time machines pose unsettling questions. In the distant future, will Earthlings be able to travel to the past and perhaps change history? Scientific ideas considered far-fetched today could one day become as acceptable as the fact that the Earth is round. The laws of physics may allow for the existence of wormholes, tunnels providing shortcuts through space as well as time. So, could these cosmic subway systems theoretically be engineered into time machines? Einstein's general relativity laws reveal that time travel into the future is possible. They show that time is perceived differently depending on where one is in the universe and how one moves. Objects moving at close to the speed of light age slower than static objects. And objects near a gravitating body age more slowly than objects farther away.
Clocks run
rates in different gravitational fields. The stronger the gravitational field, the more slowly time passes relative to someone out in space where there's no gravitational field. On Earth here, on the surface, our clocks run slightly more slowly than clocks high up in the sky. So an example of this is that the clocks in the GPS system of satellites run a little bit more quickly than the clocks here on Earth because they're in a weaker gravitational field. And the scientists and engineers developing the GPS system had to take into account the different rate at which clocks run. If they hadn't done that correctly, then your GPS system wouldn't work. If you were taking a trip from Los Angeles to New York, you'd end up somewhere in Massachusetts.
Forward time travel has been tested using highly precise atomic clocks. Scientists have placed one clock on the ground and another in a rocket flying high above the Earth. The two were compared using radio signals between rocket and ground. The clock on the rocket ticked faster.
Here on Earth, my clock is running more slowly compared to someone in a rocket ship somewhere further away from Earth. So their clock is moving more quickly. They're going to the future faster.
Physicists have studied whether wormholes could provide travel not only to the future, but also to the past. If there was a wormhole with one mouth near Earth and the other in the center of our galaxy, the rate of flow of time will be different at the one mouth than at the other when compared to the external universe. But when looking directly through the wormhole, the rate of flow of time appears to be the same. This difference in their relative ticking rates, as viewed externally versus viewed through the wormhole, would convert the wormhole into a time machine. says that by entering a wormhole, you could leave here today and come out the other end of the wormhole hundreds or thousands of years earlier.
The wormhole may lead to things like being able to go to another galaxy, or even going to another time. It's possible you can use a wormhole of a certain kind to actually transport information backward in time, or people backward in time.
But backward time travel raises disturbing paradoxes. Could one actually voyage to the past and change history?
One of the problems with traveling backwards in time is that it produces various paradoxes. The most famous of this is the grandfather paradox. This says that if I have a time machine, I could go back in time and I could kill my grandfather, who would then never have had my father, who would never have had me, I would never have been born. So that means you would never have been able to go back into the past in the first place.
Or, let's say you go backwards in time and meet your teenage mother before you're born. And then your teenage mother falls in love with you. Then how can you be born if your teenage mother spurned your father and fell in love with you instead? The practical problems are enormous. But one day, if somebody knocks on your door and claims to be your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter, someone from the future going backwards in time to meet her illustrious ancestor, don't slam the door. Perhaps in the future, our descendants will have the possibility of time travel, and perhaps one day they may come knocking on your door.
Backward time travel has ignited a myriad of science fiction scenarios.
That machine can do what you see it can. Destroy its yours before it destroys you.
If the laws of physics permit wormholes, then how can those laws deal with the danger of changing history?
One possibility is that the laws of physics allow you to do backward time travel as long as it leads to a self-consistent universe, that in some sense the history is not changeable. You can't go backwards and change things, which would stop you from having been created in the first place, for example, in the grandfather paradox.
For now, forward or backward time travel through a wormhole remains in question, and some scientists think that any attempt to create a wormhole time machine may destroy the wormhole.
What actually happens when you try and make that wormhole into a time machine is that as soon as it starts connecting different times, you get a pileup of radiation so intense that it destroys the entire wormhole, thus stopping you from making that wormhole into a time machine. This seems to be a sign that maybe this is the way nature protects itself, using the laws of physics from ever producing paradoxes and strange things that time machines seem to suggest.
Wormhole travel is really iffy because you have to know a lot about the wormhole so that it doesn't do unpleasant things like, for example, turn you into a big ball of gas all of a sudden. Because the gravitational stresses that support the wormhole are plausibly quite strong.
The idea of a wormhole is not something that we can point to and say that's impossible. It would be absurd to say we can't do that ever, because we're dealing with powers, energies, and knowledge that are outside of our current domain.
Like a wormhole, there's another phenomenon that has never been discovered. But Einstein's general relativity laws allow for its existence. It's called a white hole.
Well, a black hole is an object in which things are falling and disappearing, rather like a sinkhole. A white hole is doing the opposite. Things are coming out. Things are coming out rather like a fountain.
A white hole is like the unicorn, an exotic animal that's never been seen before. A white hole is very similar to a black hole, except it runs backwards. Think of running the videotape backwards. Instead of matter falling into the event horizon, never to come out, matter falls out opposite, a tiny burst black hole. Black holes, as we know, have now been understood to be out there in our universe. And so you might wonder whether the same thing's true about white holes as well. For example, quasars, when they were first discovered, were thought to be maybe white holes. Why? Because they seem to be producing a huge amount of energy. We now know that that's not the case. Quasars are actually powered by black holes. There's a school of thought that says that anything that can exist must exist somewhere. And if one adopts that school of thought, then at the moment we have to admit that white holes might be out there somewhere.